Hi, I'm back. So I'm here again for you to have the continuation of our topic yesterday, which is all about the conditional statements. Okay? So of course, we are going to have first our review. Okay? So when we say conditional statement, that is a logical statement with two parts. Okay? And those two parts are what we call the hypothesis and conclusion. Okay? And then, it can be written in if-then form, such as if P, then Q, where P is the hypothesis and Q is the conclusion. Hypothesis is the part after the word if. Again, take note that the hypothesis is the part after the word if, while the conclusion is the part after the word then. Again, the conclusion is the part after the word then. Okay? So let's have this example. You are going to underline the hypothesis and circle the conclusion. So, the conditional statement is, if you are a Filipino, then you have black hair. So, which part are you going to underline as your hypothesis and circle as your conclusion? Okay, so I hope you already have your answer. So you are going to underline this part. You are a Filipino because this is our hypothesis. And then, you are going to encircle this part. You have black hair because this will be our conclusion. Okay, so I hope you have a recall on the topic that we have discussed yesterday. Okay, because this day, we are going to have analyzing the truth value of a conditional statement. Okay, so this is our first topic for this day. So, a conditional statement has a truth value of either true or false. It is false only when the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false. To show that a conditional statement is false, you need to find only one counterexample where the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false. Okay? So let us see. So let's see. We have to determine if the conditional is true. If false, give a counterexample. So for our first one, we have, if this month is February, then next month is March. Okay? So is it true or false? Okay, so when the hypothesis is true, the conclusion is also true because March follows February. So, the conditional is true. Okay, any question in number 1? If you don't have, so let's proceed with number 2. If two angles are acute, then they are congruent. So what do you think? Is it true or false? Okay, so let's see. I have here the explanation. You can have acute angles with measures of 80 degrees and 30 degrees. In this case, the hypothesis is true, but the conclusion is false. Since you can find a counterexample, the conditional is false. Okay, do you get it? Okay, next, number 3. If a number is odd, then it is divisible by 3. So is it true or false? Okay, so this is false. Why? We have an example of an odd number is 7. It is not divisible by 3. In this case, the hypothesis is true, but the conclusion is false. Since you can find a counterexample, so the conditional is false. Okay? Not only 7, but you may also have 5, which is not also divisible by 3. Okay? Number 4. If you live in Cavite, then you live in General Trias. Is it true or false? It is false. Why? We have, you could live in Tagaytay, Amadeo, or Naik, which is part of Cavite. So again, the conditional is false. Okay, next. If n squared equals 144, then n equals 12. So is it true or false? Correct. It is false. Why? The value of n can be negative 12. Because if we are going to square negative 12, it is 144 also. So the conditional is false. Okay. For the last example, if tomorrow is Thursday, then today is Wednesday. Is this true or false? That's correct. It is true. Why? When the hypothesis is true, the conclusion is also true. Because Thursday follows Wednesday. So again, the conditional is true. Okay? So is there any question about analyzing the truth value of the given conditional statements? Okay, so you have to take note that a conditional statement is true if the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is true. While a conditional statement is false if the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false. Okay? So, put that on your mind. Okay? So, let's try this. Again, determine if the conditional is true. If false, give a counter example. Okay? So, we have here, if x squared is greater than 0, then x is greater than 0. So, is it true or false? Okay, correct. It is false. Okay, why? Because any negative number has a positive square. One possible counterexample is x is equal to negative 1. Because negative 1, when we square, is equal to positive 1, which is greater than 0. So the hypothesis here is true. And because negative 1 is less than 0, so the conclusion is false. So that's why the conditional is false. Okay, do you get it? Okay, so for our next number, we have number 2. If an animal is a cat, then it has 4 paws. Okay, so do you think, is it true or false? The correct answer here is true. Okay, because cats have 4 paws. So, the conditional is true. Okay, next, number 3. If the numbers contain the digit 0, then they are divisible by 10. Is it true or false? Correct, it is false. Why? Because 105 contains 0, but it's not divisible by 10. Okay, so is there any question about the truth values? Okay, because this time we're going to proceed with the second subtopic this day, which is all about the converse of conditional statements. Okay, converse of conditional statements, not the brand of the shoes. Okay, just kidding. So the converse is a statement formed by exchanging the hypothesis and conclusion. So from the original conditional statement, you are going to exchange your hypothesis and conclusion. Wherein, for you to have the converse statement, you are going to switch the hypothesis and conclusion parts of a conditional statement. For example, if you are a Filipino, then you have black hair. So how are we going to have our converse here? Again, switch the hypothesis and conclusion. So it will become, if you have black hair, then you are a Filipino. Okay? So did you get it? Again, switch or exchange the position of the hypothesis and the conclusion. Okay? Next, number 2. If an angle is obtuse, then its measure is greater than 90 degrees. If an angle is obtuse, then its measure is greater than 90 degrees. So what is the converse? Okay, so if an angle has a measure greater than 90 degrees, then it is an obtuse angle. Okay, so that's correct. How about this one? If a number is divisible by 2, then it is divisible by 4. What is the converse of this? That's correct. If a number is divisible by 4, then it is divisible by 2. Okay? Any question? So let's try this. For number 1, I have here, if two angles have the same measure, then the angles are congruent. So what is its converse? Okay, correct. If two angles are congruent, then the angles have the same measure. So that's correct. How about number 2? If I am asleep, then I am breathing. What is its converse? Correct. We have, if I am breathing, then I am asleep. Okay? For the last example, let us have, if a bird is an ostrich, then it cannot fly. So what is its converse? That's correct. If a bird cannot fly, then it is an ostrich. Okay? So is there any question? So if you don't have, so that's all for this day. Thank you and God bless.